I got two hands, I got my mouth, I know how to earn money.
She absolutely does. She doesn't miss a trick.
Do you recall the time Frank insisted he was back in the Philippines, when in truth he was hiding behind a tree in Hawaii, filming a lie? Or when he was stuck in Hawaii during the pandemic, blasting rooster sounds from a speaker just off camera so people would think he'd flown home early on a special repatriation flight? Or more recently, the time he emptied his own freezer, laid the items out on the table, then filmed himself putting them back as if he'd just returned from Cebu City, claiming he had his visa renewed when no such trip ever happened? These weren't mistakes. They were performances, small, desperate fictions stitched together to keep the illusion alive that Frank is legitimate, that he's respected, that the system is on his side. And now, he's done it again. In this video, Frank fakes an email from the Bureau of Immigration, not to persuade the government, but to persuade you, and maybe himself to a degree, that they're already in his corner. As you listen to Frank read from this supposed Bureau of Immigration message, notice how little of it resembles institutional communication, and how much of it echoes his own voice, his own needs. He doesn't claim it's from the Board of Commissioners. He doesn't cite an official ruling. Instead, he presents it as an informal reply, something from inside, a casual message from an unnamed office he refuses to identify. This vagueness is intentional. It gives him room to invent, to suggest proximity to power, without ever having to prove it. He says they called him Mr. B. He says they told him, we don't see any wrongdoings, and it's going to be up to a committee to decide. These aren't the words of a legal authority. They're not meant to be. They're meant to sound friendly, reassuring, just official enough to lend weight to his narrative that he's innocent and that the government knows it. Because Frank isn't just lying to comfort himself, he's lying to stage a message for his audience. For the few people left on YouTube still orbiting his bitterness, for the ones he hopes to sway, he spent months insisting this case is fraudulent, that the complaint against him is hollow, malicious, invalid. But repetition alone doesn't hold up. He needs endorsement. He needs to project that the Bureau sees it his way. And so he invents a voice, vague, uncredited, unverifiable, and uses it to anchor his delusion in the illusion of authority. It's not about evidence, it's about performance. The letter doesn't need to be real. It only needs to sound close enough to power that no one questions who's really pulling the strings. This is the behavior of someone who has lived too long inside a closed feedback loop. A man with unchecked narcissistic damage, a deep persecution complex, and an addiction to narrative control. He can't survive being seen as wrong, let alone forgotten. So, he constructs a shadow bureaucracy around himself, made of suggestion, implication, and the imagined sympathy of invisible officials. It's not that Frank believes this letter will stop the process, it's that in his crumbling world, the appearance of validation is the only currency he has left. And once you see it for what it is, not a real communication but a prop in a larger performance, the cracks in Frank's fiction are impossible to ignore. The phrasing is indistinct and contradictory. We don't see any wrongdoings. We don't think it's a valid complaint. It's up to a committee. This office has no control of that. This is not how institutions communicate. It's how Frank communicates. The language of someone trying to sound official without understanding what official even sounds like. He repeats himself because he always repeats himself. He pretends he can't make out certain phrases, something with an M and O-U-F, because he thinks vagueness adds realism. He drops invented terms like administrative order and claims the Bureau is overwhelmed with pogo cases, a completely unrelated domain to pad out the scene with texture to give the illusion of being in the loop. But it doesn't hold. None of it holds. He won't name the person who supposedly sent it. He won't show the email. He says, I can't put the person's name out there, but there with the B-O-I, a phrase so devoid of detail it might as well be fiction, because that's what it is. If someone had written Frank an email clearing him, or even vaguely sympathizing with him, he'd plaster it on the screen, build a video thumbnail around it. But instead we get stutters, evasions, paraphrased vagueness, the trademark signs of a man trying to bluff his way through a silence he can't penetrate. Because the truth, the part Frank can't say out loud, is that no one at the Bureau is writing to him. There is no letter, there is no sympathy, there is only silence, the kind that grows heavier with each passing week. He doesn't know what's happening behind closed doors. That uncertainty terrifies him. And in the absence of real feedback, he does what he always does. He constructs his own. Not as an act of defiance, but as a form of survival. He needs the lie to keep the dread at bay. He needs the performance to drown out the stillness, because without it, he's just a man waiting in the dark, and the dark is starting to press in. This isn't the first time Frank has tried to conjure legitimacy through invisible allies. When his own tenants sued him, a case that saw police visit his home multiple times, he claimed that not only was the complaint absurd, but that everyone agreed. He said the police officer laughed with him. He said his attorney chuckled at the papers and told him no judge would take it seriously. And he said again and again that there was no case, but there was. And Frank lost it. Every count, all 7. It wasn't a misunderstanding, it wasn't theater, it was a real legal process, and it ended with Frank publicly and completely defeated. And yet even now, he uses the same tactics. He imagines the Bureau is smiling quietly behind the scenes, sending him friendly nods of approval. He paints himself not as a man under investigation, but as one being quietly vindicated. If only the rest of us could see what he sees. But we can see, and what's visible now is a man collapsing under the weight of his own unmet needs. He has spent months repeating that the complaint against him is false, but never once has he addressed what it contains. Not the evidence, not the claims, not the context, because that would mean facing it. And Frank doesn't face things. He rephrases them, reframes them, and when that fails, he fabricates new voices to do it for him. He's been increasingly agitated about Shaw. He saw the wave of support she received, and in return he asked his viewers to rally behind him, and no one came. That silence terrified him, so he broke it with a lie. A fake letter, an unnamed official, a familiar illusion that authority is on his side, and that he is still the one in control. But control has never been further from his reach. What he's building now isn't a defense, it's a shelter. Not from judgment, but from the cold, growing truth that no one is laughing anymore, not the police, not the lawyers, not the Bureau, and not even the audience he so desperately needs.
Okay, well, got a little something in my email from my attorney this morning. Kind of interesting news. I'm not going to present it on here. I'll give you the highlights. And basically, this is coming from the Department of Immigration in response to my many requests to get to the conclusion of the resolution. And basically, if I could even quote some of this, our office is aware of your concern about the resolution and regarding the complaints of Ms. Charisma Saram, and they spelled it wrong anyway. As far as we're concerned in this office, we don't think there's a valid, it is a valid complaint. However, it's not up to our office, and this has to be still presented in front of a committee. We cannot give you a timeline on this, but all we ask is your patience. I cannot make no guarantees. From our standpoint, we don't see valid supporting evidence by Ms. Saram, wrong spelling, but we have received all your communications, and there's no need to, hinder the office with, trying to read this, with more supportive evidence on your part. We assure you that your letters have been read, but it's not up to our office to make this decision. We ask you to have some patience on this matter, and I know it's been a long time, and as far as your complaint or concern about the administrative order, this office has no control of that. We will inform you as soon as we can of a resolution on this matter. Please understand that your complaint is amongst many complaints with the Bureau of Immigration, and they have been we have been very busy with many POGO cases here, so we have been quite overwhelmed. I understand your situation, but you still have to be patient. I'm sure this matter will be settled as soon as possible. It is not my office that makes the decisions. Please note that. We can give you an email address if you want to contact the committee. No guarantee that they will see it or read it, but you can, at this given email address, send your inquiries and concerns, not to this email that you've been writing us for quite a while. Of course, we have received all the counter affidavits, and memorandums from your attorney. It's all on file. It all will be reviewed, but as far as we can see from this office, we don't see any wrongdoings. But again, it is not up to our office. It's going to be up to a committee to decide the direction on this resolution. Please, Mr. Blah, 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 be patient in this matter. Hopefully it will come to a good resolve. I make no guarantees. But your attorney would be informed of any new information that comes up. We have not been ignoring your letters, Mr. B. And then it goes on a little bit more. And I can't put the person's name out there, but they are with the BOI. So kind of encouraging on one level, but it's not up to these people. It's on a higher level through a committee that has to decide on this. At least there's one level that kind of sees the light of day that it was a totally bogus report, but there's no guarantee on this either way. So that's the news I have to share. Sounds encouraging to me, but like anything else in life, there's no guarantee on that. And the reason they got back is because my attorney filed a, what the hell was that? It starts with an M. It's a request. It's basically a request to shit or get off the pot is what it is. The best terms I can give you on there. Memorandus? No, it's something with an M and OUS at the end on. I don't have that in front of me. It was actually in the response to that. So the lawyer came up with some paperwork and said, look, we need an answer to this. Meanwhile, my client is accruing. What they did say to that too, though, is that, which I didn't read everything, in regards to that matter, no, I have to, no matter what, I still have to pay the penalties and fines for every month that goes by. Unfortunately, they're not going to get rid of that. That's not talking about a lot of money. It's not even been 4 months. Nevertheless, hopefully they come up with a resolution soon, and hopefully it's in my favor. This sounded encouraging to me. It did. The first response that we've actually had back from them, despite one of my lawyers actually going all the way to Manila to try to find out answers. Of course, at my expense. But it's sounding promising, but we'll see where it goes. I'm not going to, I'm not going to rely on disinformation as being an answer and a resolution, because a resolution has not been reached. They made it very clear that I'm not the only person on there that they're taking care of, handling complaints and so forth. And I always understood that, but it's been like a year or something. It's just ridiculous, but it goes to show you. Then the Pogos came in the picture, And a lot of their concentration has been on the Pogos. There's tons of them. They're still processing paperwork on them. It's like nonstop. You'd think by now they got rid of all the Pogos out here, but apparently not. They're still around. So that's the encouraging news. It's nothing set in stone. And there's one more paragraph in there I won't read. And it does have to do, we recognize, well, let's just say, they're in recognition with the Barry Jordan connection, harboring and all this other, they're well awareness of that. And they put the two and two together, at least from this office. They see the correlation with this. So with that being said, I think it sounds pretty good. Sounds pretty good. Time will tell. And now that Barry has actually been convicted, it even furthers the office to kind of look at this matter a little differently. But whenever anybody puts a complaint in, as I was told by my lawyer and otherwise, they have to put a hold order until there's a resolution involved. And that simply means that if it means that they can't, they will not allow you to renew, not leave the country, that's what they do. And you can't fight that, unfortunately. And unlike Barry, almost 7 years of intentional overstay, this situation has not even close to be measured to Barry's situation. This was totally voluntary on his part, so keep that in mind. Anyway, that's some of the encouraging news, but it's not up to this office. But they did finally respond because my lawyer had put in a memorandus? No, that's not the name. I can't think of what the hell this was. Which is basically a, as I call it, a shit or get off the pot statement to make your resolution that it's been X amount of time that has passed by and is causing his client unnecessary expenses as far as visa fees and so forth and penalties. At least there was some answer to this. I mean, not the answer that we wanted to hear completely, but I don't know. Sounds encouraging. All the news that's fit to print.